Hey everybody, Gabe Suarez here from Suarez Tactics. So I did my commentaries recently, and one of the things that I look for is questions and comments that people put afterward. I got one here from Fabian Mejia on YouTube. Fabian, hey, what's up, brother? Good to hear from you. So he asks, and he mentions some person that does training. I'm not going to mention his name, but in any case, okay, so and so contends practical shooting competition (parentheses matches) help shooters evolving constantly improve and/or change skills. Question: do you, Gabe, believe that? Let's see, what is it here? Okay, believe shooting in matches competition is the only way to progress or evolve. If not, why not? Okay, so here we go. No, I don't think so. And look, I'll come out and say it right now. Sports and fighting are not the same, and that includes sport fighting and it includes sport shooting. It's not the same. Sport fighting is not the same as a street fight. And sport shooting is not the same as a gunfight. It's not. And so you have to be honest with yourself. What is it that you are looking for? You want to go and become a world champion? Great. Then, go and do the competitions and whatnot. But don't lie to yourself that you are preparing to be a gunfighter or win the gunfight. Okay. So anyway, I prepared some notes here. So the first thing I want to talk about is, the first time that I heard about this was I read a lot of material by Fairbairn, who was probably the driving force behind a lot of the training that takes place today, even though his scope of instruction was very limited to non-dedicated personnel, but it formed the basis for a lot of stuff we even do today. And he warned that the minute that you start rewarding those that stand out in shooting skills, either with a little medal to put on their uniform, or a competition or something of that nature, that you start changing the focus from what it should be. and I thought, that's very interesting. And the second one is in the 1950s, Hollywood was really good at making westerns compared to some of the nonsense that they're putting out today. But and one of the things that the Hollywood westerns did is they created the fast draw. Now, I'm a student of the Old West gunfights, and there are no events where two guys faced each other on the street and then they fast drew on each other and so on. They were more like ambushes and same kind of gunfights we see today in the inner city. And but that's not really clean and Captain America-ish for Hollywood. So they invented the Gunsmoke, Matt Dillon facing down the bad guy and both doing a fast draw and all that sort of thing, which, if you think about it, is the craziest thing. Why would you do that? So anyway, this one actor, a guy named Hugh OBrien, you can look him up. He did a number of Western movies, typical Hollywood actor of the era. And he was really good at the fast draw, and he could draw from one of these specially designed holsters, and draw and fan that pistol and hit a balloon with a black powdered blank in about a quarter of a second, which is pretty good. And there were some guys that were even faster later on. I remember seeing some videos of Bob Munden, for example, incredibly fast. But neither of those guys are going to walk around the street wearing those holsters with those guns. It's not going to happen. And in the old days, in the Old West, if you're wearing one of those holsters, you're on a horse, the pistol is going to fall out of the holster. So totally impractical for everyday use. All right. But anyway, Hugh OBrien challenged AIE Murphy to a fast draw. And AIE Murphy, as some of you may or may not know, was a legitimate World War II gunfighter, decorated, been there, done that, killed a bunch of guys in combat and stuff like that. And AIE Murphy's comeback is classic, with real ammunition anytime. Okay, well, as you can imagine, the matter was dropped after that. So now, look, sports has rules, and those rules having to negotiate those rules and work within those rules is going to create a situation where you have a deviation of purpose. Are you training to win the fight, or are you training to win the match? Another example was the old Miami Vice show. I love that show, the original one. There's an episode there that shows a guy named Mike Zubiena, who was IPSC guy of the era, and I'm sure you've seen it, where he's standing there and security guy has him at gunpoint, and Zubiena's up here like this, and at one point Zubiena reaches down, draws from appendix carry, and smokes the guy. And now Zubiena had done thousands and thousands and thousands of repetitions of, as soon as he's done shooting, he unloads the pistol. Okay? Because that's what you do in competition. And you're supposed to do it. You can't step off the stage with a loaded pistol because, good heavens, it's unsafe and all that bullshit. And so the script called for Zubiena to holster up and walk away, but he could not stop himself from unloading and showing clear. And so the producer actually, or director, whoever is in charge of that kind of stuff, just left it in the scene and made it a part of the deal, because they couldn't get him to change what he had trained himself to do. It's a training scar. Okay. And so my objection to sports shooting is that oftentimes it'll create training scars like that on the street can be very disastrous for you. Okay. Now, the rules, another example. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. Joe Rogan's one of them that I listen to. I was listening to one recently with him and Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy is a legit guy. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, notable in the training world, and U.S. military, been there, done that, gunfighter, the whole 9 yards. And they were talking about how sport oftentimes creates rules that nullify some of the combat efficiency of the whatever it is that they're doing. And they were speaking specifically of grappling and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. And I think that it was Joe Rogan that brought up that, well, what happens if all of a sudden somebody just starts slapping you in the face when you're trying to grapple with them? And it led to a whole thread in the discussion that I thought was fascinating from these two guys. So, look, everybody knows that a fight and a competition are different. And I don't know why it seems that people incessantly want to argue the point. Now, look, is competitive shooting worthless? No, I'm not going to tell you that that's the case, because it's not. What you will learn from competitive shooting is you'll learn how to shoot accurately, okay, and you'll learn how to shoot fast. All right, but that's it. That's all you're going to learn. The tactics from competitive shooting do not transfer across to the street. I'm sorry, they don't. And if you try and use competitive shooting tactics on the street, you run the risk of being killed or injured. That's the fact. In the competitive realm, there is no incoming rounds. There are no actual human beings that are trying to hurt you and kill you and so on. And the only issue that you have is moving through this particular pattern that they've drawn on the ground and shooting certain targets in a certain order. And oftentimes what you see the competitors do is they go out there and they walk it through and they measure the steps and they figure out where they're going to reload and what they're going to do. And they know exactly how this is going to end. It's choreographed like a John Wick movie. But the real world is not like that. And so in the real world, you have to have an understanding of street tactics. You have an understanding of how to justify what you're doing in your mind and later in your explanation. You have to have an understanding of the initiative in the fight. You have to have an understanding of maneuvering around an opponent, what cover and concealment really are, how to run the weapon at arm's length, on the ground, at various points and distances and so on. And these are all intangibles that can't be brought into the square range because it would be unsafe. But that is what you need for gunfighting, and you don't learn that in competitive shooting. So look, here's the thing. If you like competitive shooting, do it. I'm not telling you not to, but don't lie to yourself and tell yourself, I'm doing this and I'm going to be a good gunfighter because I'm doing this, because that's just not the case. You're going to be an accurate shooter. You're going to be a fast shooter. But you know what? Those things you can also learn just on your own in your own practice. It may not be as entertaining. It may not be as, I don't know, may not have the social aspect. It may not have the ego gratification. But there's nothing that you're going to learn there that you're not going to learn by yourself, or training in a small group with training associates. Okay, so that's my opinion. Is it a valuable thing to do? Again, it all depends on how much time you have. I think it's better than going and playing golf. I think it's better than going and and bowling. I think it's better than going and playing basketball. What kind of a grown man would want to play basketball instead of going shooting? Good grief. But look, honestly, there is, if we look at the gunfighting percentages, all right, with 100% being everything that you need to pretty much, be able to win a gunfight. Okay, the 100%, of the pie. How much does competitive shooting address in that pie? My opinion, about 10%. Okay, no more than that. And there is a great deal that is missing. And a lot of it too is your mental attitude, creating that ability to trigger, that mental trigger. There's a lot there that takes place in here that you just don't get in the sporting realm, because there's a lot that's left out because of the time involved, if we were to include it, and the concerns of safety and all this sort of thing. Okay. And it's not just in competitive shooting. I mean, it's in any martial sport. Olympic fencing is not sword fighting. I mean, good Lord, it's not. I did épée fencing with my son for a very long time, and that's not how guys fought in the real world with swords. It's a sport now. Even my own parent karate system, Kyokushin, at one point they decided that it would be expeditious to eliminate any strikes to the head. And so it took what was truly the strongest karate and turned it into a sport that really, if it's trained for sport, it has really very little bearing on the street. I remember, my God, I was in a lot of street fights when I was in law enforcement, and almost all of them started off with somebody taking a punch to my head. And so now you're training yourself to ignore those so that you can win the little silver cup. That's just stupid. Why would you do that? Okay? So, look, if you like sports shooting, do it. But be honest with yourself. And truly, I think that if you took an average skill cartel assassin and you put him in a room with Taron Butler, he would smoke Taron and go through his pockets for loose change before he left the room. Because on the one hand, you got a guy that's good at playing games, and on the other hand, you have a true killer. So you got to ask yourself, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? Because you can't chase both dogs and catch them both at the same time. Anyway, that's it. There's a lot more to talk on this subject, but I wanted to keep this short and not get you guys, switching channels and whatnot. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you disagree, tell me why you disagree. And let's talk about this like grown adults and explain your position. Okay? So anyway, that's it. Got to go lift. Peace out.